And what was the second one, did you say?
Brunswick.
Brunswick? Okay. Now, what's the significance of Brunswick? Who's...
That's where your great-grandma and Grandpa Turl and all the other Turls that went along with them and before them are buried.
Okay. And what was the second one? I mean, the third one? After that one?
That is at Canton, and your great-grandma White is buried at Canton.
Okay. And what's the next one on the trail, did you say?
And then to Norris, where your grandfather Sargentson and your great-great-grandfather and grandmother Rogers and your great-uncle Tom is buried.
Okay. And that was the last one?
And then home.
And then back. Now, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for I guess 20-odd years anyway.
Yeah.
No more than that. I don't remember, just it goes way back.
Okay, and some of those, some of the cemeteries are very small country
Cemeteries?
Right?
Well, two of them are. Norris, no, just one of them is small. The others are pretty large size. The oldest is probably Brunswick, which dates back to 1836.
And how long ago was the family there, or in that area?
My family?
Mm-hmm.
The first would have been my great-grandfather and your grandfather and grandmother and your great-great-great-grandfather and grandmother. And I will have to get the date off the stone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember it now.
I see an atlas down here. Do you think that shows enough detail will that road atlas show enough detail to show the route we're going to take? Do you think?
A what?
That atlas, the map?
Oh.
Do you think we could look at it and see what route we're going to take?
Oh, route?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Route 116 and then the county road and then Route 78 and 116 back home again.
Okay. How many miles are these? Are the towns far away?
A round trip of 70 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's about right. Well, let's get you started out here. This was my first new car.
Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can get, there we go. What's this say? Where'd it go? Dear Buick owner.
This was your great-great-grandma and grandpa and your grandma. She was about 5 years old then, I think. He was Samuel Rogers. Her name was Williams. She, I think, was Welsh. Her complexion was swarthy. And your grandma, you noticed a little duskiness in her complexion, didn't you? Just a little.
Guess I didn't notice, but.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
I think you were better than you. Well, anyway. And then, too, she had dark hair, but out in the sunlight, when the sun was shining on it, you could see some very, very deep red. What do you call it?
Auburn?
Huh?
Auburn?
Auburns, yeah, I guess that's what they call them sometime. But anyway, those are Welsh traits. And to fortify that argument, can't seem to find it now. But anyway, Grandpa Rogers was a blacksmith on Billy Gladstone's estate. Billy Gladstone was Prime Minister of England. You ever hear of a Gladstone bag?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, they're about this long and about this wide, and the sides come up like that,
Mm-hmm.
with a handle on top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how come they got named Gladstone. That was his favorite suitcase, Gladstone bag. Anyway, your grandma, or your great-grandma, was born on Billy Gladstone's estate at a place called St. Helens. And St. Helens and a place called Neston was right across the river from Wales. And so it's reasonable to suppose that that's how Martha Williams and Samuel Rogers came to meet and marry, you see. So I would say, I would speculate, your grandma's got a little Welsh blood in her.
Mm-hmm.
But her mother was born in Lancashire. It's a county on the west coast of England there, right next to Wales. Her Uncle Tom used to tell about when they were kids. He said they had permission to go down in the orchard and gather sticks for the stove or for the fireplace, but they were not to bother the apples. But he says, you know how kids are, and we'd get up in the apple trees, and old Billy would come running down across the orchard waving his cane at us. But he said he never could catch us. Well, in any event, the family came over here in the 1890s. And your grandma, before she came, she was born in 1881. And she had been gone in service. In other words, as a housemaid before she came over. And she married Richard Sargent. That's your grandfather.
Great-grandfather. Yeah. Where's it? There it is.
And he, your grandma was 6 months old when he died. And this is his mother. And that's his grandfather. So, you got a little of each of those in you too.
family tree.
Yeah, I got one in there.
Yeah, who was the first person on that? I can't remember how far back it goes. Or the last person, maybe. How far back did that go?
I'll give it to you and you can take it home with you.
Oh, I have one at home. You don't have to give it to me. Yeah, I have one.
I can't remember the first and last without looking at it.
Yeah.
That's not that important, is it?
Oh, I can look it. No, I can look it up when I get home. I just couldn't remember if it was one of them.
Let's see. Okay. Grandpa Rogers was a blacksmith. He was not a coppersmith or a tinsmith. But he made these little miniatures. And it's what I call craftsmanship. This is the water jug that the miners used to carry down into the mine.
He made this?
Huh?
He made this?
Yeah. And that's the lunchbox that the miners used to carry their sandwiches in. They'd run their belt through those loops there. Now, I always felt that it was easier to make the full-size article than it was to make the miniature.
So how old are these?
Huh?
How old are these?
Oh, gee. I suppose they're what, 80 years old? Or maybe not quite that old. Was they back in the 20s or thereabouts, 70 years old? Did you ever see my watch?
How do you open it? Let's see. How do you open this, Grandpa?
You have to stick a thumbnail under it.
Oh, okay. What is this?
You know what that is?
No.
It's Stonehenge.
Oh my gosh. I gotta get this. That's great. and there's north. You got that when you and Grandma went over?
Yeah.
Did you get that when you and Grandma went over to England?
No, your mom and dad were down at Disney World.
Oh, okay.
And they found it.
At Disney World.
In the shop down there.
What's
This
that?
is Grandma and Grandma Rogers' marriage license.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Condition spinster?
Huh?
It says condition spinster.
Yeah. They didn't like to give their age, so it's legal. Spinster was a legal marriage age.
Bachelor and spinster. What? But spinster has a very derogatory meaning nowadays. I guess it didn't at that time, huh?
Oh no, it merely meant that you were single and of marriageable age, of adult, an age that was considered adult.
Okay. Huh. Where did you get this?
Huh?
Where did you get this copy?
Oh, that was a copy from the original photostat.
Oops.
You notice an X mark there?
X. Yeah. Her X mark.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so someone else signed it for her.
The registrar or whoever it was that made out the certificate.
Huh.
And his father is listed as Mariner.
Mm-hmm.
He was a ship captain.
And hers was a brickmaker. Huh. June 1st, 1862.
You notice it says full bachelor and full spinster.
Right.
That means of age.
Of age.
It said married in parish church according to the rites, ceremonies of the established church. That's the Church of England. And it says after banns. Banns were notices that had to be posted.
And then, is there some sort of waiting period after the notices?
Well, I suppose they don't get married until the banns have been posted.
Okay.
Anytime after they've been posted, okay. Now, he was able to write because he signed his name. But neither Martha Williams nor her maiden-waiting could write.
Mm-hmm.
Ann Jones, her X mark.
Right.
Uh, that what making that noise?
I hear some sort of siren out there. Very, very faint. This is making a slight noise too, but there's some sort of siren out there. I've been hearing it for a while now.
It's a strange noise to me.
It is. It sounds to me like it's outside the house though.
Oh, it is, yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to put it on pause.
That's what an old man does.
What
He can't do anything else, you know.
what have you been doing?
No, sit down there.
Okay.
You might like to look through this. There's a light behind you there, but it'll need...
Oh, I don't need it on. That's okay.
What's that?
Okay, I don't know. I think that's one of your medical things.
Oh, yeah. How did that get in there?
I don't know. You're writing poetry.
Huh?
You writing poetry?
Yeah.
How long have you been working on this, Grandpa?
Oh, I don't know. Goes over 2 or 3 years, I guess.
I'm reading Kitty Cat, Kitty Cat.
That would make another nice little children's book.
Uh-huh.
Properly illustrated, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What I was looking for there was a lilt or a sing-song, you know. That's something that really get to a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A 3-year-old.
Molly, Dolly, Raleigh, and Ebenezer. I have that book. The Stewart Heritage.
Huh?
The Stewart Heritage.
Oh, yeah.
Lulu Duran.
That would be your grandma's grandparents.
Okay. Robert the Bruce, was it?
Huh?
It says, you remember the great Scottish chieftain who unified Scotland, whose name was Robert the Bruce?
Robert the Bruce.
Okay.
Some of that's speculation, and where it is, I will say so.
Right.
Other places, it's fact.
It's fact. Okay. Huh.
Now another thing that kind of nails down that immigration, back in the early days, all the Scots immigrants came in through Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
It was not until later they came down through the St. Lawrence into Toronto and moved over into the States. And when I was a boy, there were still Stuart, part of the family, living in Pennsylvania yet. So I feel reasonably sure that that's how they came into the country. And I don't know how they ended up, George Stewart ended up here. But I do know that after you cross the Alleghenies, or the Appalachians, into Kentucky, Tennessee, there's an awful lot of Scotch-Irish down there. Mm-hmm. In that area. Well, probably they went down the Ohio, filtered down the Ohio, eventually to Illinois, and maybe that was the way he came up into this area. Because Illinois wasn't settled, more or less, until about 1815. The house over on War Memorial, you know, which used to be Reservoir. The first transfer of land recorded on that property was from the government was in 1815. Well, after the War of 1812, the government was broke and couldn't pay the soldiers that fought in that war. So they reserved a huge territory, at least there in central Illinois, and going west to the Mississippi, which was called the Military District. And that was reserved specifically to give each of these soldiers 160 acres of land in lieu of what would have been his pay. So the first transfer was in 1815, and you can assume that all the others more or less dated back to that period. The man kept it a couple of years and sold it for $50. The guy that bought it kept it a couple of years, and he got his money back. He sold it for $50 to a land speculative group in Boston, and I don't remember where all it went and how from there. But in any event, the Scotch-Irish heritage, it seems like everybody who has it mentions it. And Scotch-Irish, how do you get that? Well, it goes back to the importation of Scots farmers to keep the electorate Protestant up in Northern Ireland. What, 300 years ago or thereabouts. Is that rain?
Yep. It's pouring down. The Turl family history.
So you see, the family came here to escape the law. You see, that boy was indentured for 7 years. That meant they owned him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, this was unusual for people like that to own land. But my great-grandfather, James Turl, it was described as a little plot of land he owned, which he sold in order to finance the move of the family over here. I interpret a plot of land of no more than 5 acres. And it goes, one thing that bears out that assumption is that he made a remark. I don't know whether it's included in there or not, but he made a remark sometime that they never had enough to eat until they came to America.
Mm-hmm.
So with a large family, it'd be pretty hard to scratch a living out of 5 acres. So, over the years, you can see the family's improved, hasn't it?
So
you missed the hard years.
Yeah. So he was indentured to a rope maker.
Rope maker, yeah.
A rope maker. Doesn't seem like, and you said it's similar to an apprenticeship almost.
Well, I don't know. You see, Britain, big edge was its navy and its fleet of merchant ships. That called for an awful lot of rope.
That's true.
And,
yeah, I never thought of it that way.
I'm sure that it took certain specialized knowledge to make rope up to the standards expected of it.
I guess so. I was just thinking, you know, a rope's a rope. But I wasn't thinking about the possible uses. Yeah.
Yeah. See, back in those days, Britain spanned the world. Trade with India. They owned Australia then. In fact, Australia developed because from people that Britain had sentenced to imprisonment or exile. And a large percentage of the people that went to Australia at that time were felons, or some others that had been in trouble with the law. And when you look back on it, it's kind of miraculous how our forebears survived, because Europe was plagued with the Black Death and other in wars and other catastrophes, you know. But the laws of percentages overcame, you know. For those that died, there were replacements. And that is borne out throughout the world in nature, in human life, everything. There is a force based on the odds that means they're going to survive, you know, given the right conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Even through adversity.
I don't think I would have wanted to have been on the ship when the family came over. You said something about all the men spent most of their time bailing and
Yeah.
pumping the water out from the...
4 weeks.
Jeez.
I been watching on PBS Nomads of the Sea, which traces the development of the South Sea Islanders and how they would set out to look for new lands. And it might take them a month to sail, and they didn't know whether anything was out there or not, but they ended up on islands, and in order to survive they took with them animals, vegetables, other plants. The breadfruit was carried along with them. It became one of their chief staples. And how they managed to do it, I don't know. I remember talking to a man who flew a plane in the South Pacific during World War II. It would have been one of those old DC-3s, you know, twin. It was used for general transport. And he talked about having to carry brass to some place in the Pacific during the war. And of course, he had more information. He had distances more or less plotted and directions and so on. But it's very easy to miss a little speck of land out in the middle of the South Pacific unless you're right true on course. And with the winds that coming from the side and drift and one thing and another, it's pretty hard to do. And he said they'd be flying for hours and the brass would get kind of worried about whether they were going to find that island or not. And he'd tell them not to worry, we'll find it. And said pretty soon, he said, we'd see a big bank of clouds. So he'd steer for those clouds, and there was the island.
So the temperature differential between the land and the water. Good way to do it.
Huh?
I said that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I was at this conference last week, and I was talking with a fellow who said that 25 years ago, maybe even just 20 years ago, he had been hired to do some consulting to determine how close on course pilots were when they flew across the Atlantic Ocean. You know, they have a certain course that they're supposed to go by, and they navigate. And so this study was to determine how close to the actual course they were. And so they collected like hundreds and hundreds of flights, information from hundreds of flights. And I guess this was actually more like 20 years ago, perhaps.
World War II would have been a good time.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, but this was more like about 20 years ago, I guess. He said he was doing this. And they discovered that out of these hundreds and hundreds of flights, almost everyone was right on target except for the Air Force. The U.S. Air Force, they were way, way off. Sometimes they were like, miles and miles.
They
and
had
so
the experience. I mean, they were trained a few weeks in order to learn how to fly, and then pointed.
Well, but supposedly they have some sort of navigation system on board, right?
Yeah.
Well, so this fellow who was doing the consulting talked to one of the pilots, and he said, you were off by so and so many miles. What in the world? What kind of navigation system are you using? And he said, we use the Contrail navigation system. And so George Hazelrig says, well, what in the world is the Contrail navigation system? He says,
that can blow away.
Well, he says, you go up and you look for all the contrail from the commercial pilots, and you figure they know where they're going, and you follow them.
Yeah. At least once or twice, maybe 3 times a year, it's not so frequent now, but it used to be more so. You see contrails coming from all directions right over Peoria. Now, part of the training exercises from Maine, Texas, Florida, wherever they had big bomber bases, they rig what they call a time on target. They pick a target and tell each pilot what time he's to be over it, see? And then they all, I guess, put them a few minutes apart. But you can see those contrails coming in and crossing Peoria from all directions.
Oh. Wow. That'd be something to get a picture of. That's neat.
This is, they did it more complicated than this, but this is the basis. This is the basic instrument for staying on course. You can figure time, gasoline use, all kinds of things with it.
Flight computer. What's GS and TH? It says for G period, S period, and T period, H period. Eh. Huh.
For instance, you can look on the map and get your direction. between 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the wind.
Okay. Give me an example of how it works.
I can't tell you.
Oh, okay.
But
okay, let me look.
you can get the wind from what direction. If it's a side wind, you know how much it'll blow you off course, and you compensate for that.
Let me see what.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Looks complicated. Huh. And computer, what's this? Oh, I see. It moves up and down. You know, I bet, do you think they still use these? Or do they use these still?
Well, I suppose you're supposed to learn them now. It was part of it when I was flying.
I think it's getting stuck in the back there. Here, there we go.
Now there's another correction that could be fed in there as well. For instance, magnetic north is not always true. It's being interfered with by iron deposits laid around in different parts of the country. Here, it's 4 degrees east. In other words, if you follow your compass, it'll be following, if you're going north, it'll be pointing 4 degrees east of true north.
Okay.
And 2 degrees after an hour or 2 hours flight can put you way off.
Way off, yeah.
Out in Colorado, I think the deviation is something like 14 degrees. That's way off, see. You've always got the wind, whether it's in your nose and slows you down on ground speed, or blows you off course to one side or the other. I used to use the clock. It's no good in this kind of weather when you've got to go IFR. But the charts are made about 8 miles to the inch. So I fly by my compass course. Look at the chart, how many inches, and divide it into the number of inches into miles per hour and so on. And say in the next town should come up at a given time on the clock. Well, it always showed up about that time, but it might be to the right or left, and I'd correct enough to keep on course, you see.
Some of those are beautiful, Grandpa.
You like them?
Yeah.
Well,
and some are quite funny. Silly.
They won't match Robert Louis Stevenson. She was wonderful. I keep that lamp under a picture. I look at it. I don't know whether I'm getting through to her or not. But I hope so. This is a photostat of the deed that transferred a part of the Brunswick church property to the school district being organized back in in 1860, in which the church deeded about an acre of their property for a school district on which a schoolhouse would be built in 1860. But there is a condition to it. The condition was, and this is where I went through grade school, the condition was that if the school district ever went out of existence, the land was to revert to the church again. And that's what happened. In the 30s, they began to consolidate schools and haul the kids to bigger centralized schools. Note the penmanship on here. And one of the those that must sign down here, there's an X, says her mark. She couldn't write either.
So the person who deeded it couldn't write?
Well, the people that have to sign there were church officials and so on.
Okay. Is what year was what? Okay. Thursday, January 6th, 1983. What is this?
That's a reprint from an old newspaper back in, what, 1867 or something like that?
Yeah, 1864. These are all reprints from... And is this a relation then? I guess so.
That was my great-grandmother and grandfather.
And was she killed?
No, she didn't die, but she was injured.
A sleigh carrying salt.
Coming to Peoria for salt. Salt in that amount was not easily available except in a place like Peoria. This occurred on a bridge crossing Kickapoo Creek, some 4 or 5 miles south of where we crossed it.
Mm-hmm.
And that road goes west out past Brunswick Church. And they lived about 6 miles south of the Brunswick Church at the time. And he was farming and carrying on a butchering operation at the same time. So he needed lots of salt.
Mm-hmm, for preserving it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now then, it's at least a 60-mile round trip by horse and sled into Peoria and back. That means at least 15 hours on the road. That means leaving 4 o'clock in the morning, getting home, what, 8 o'clock at night?
Mm-hmm.
Them's the conditions that existed in those days. It was not extraordinary. It's the way things were.
We can hop in a car and do it in an hour nowadays.
Mm-hmm. This is FDR signing the Social Security bill.
Where'd you get that, Grandpa? Where'd you get that?
Well, a number of years ago, when they first started chipping away at, or trying to chip away at Social Security in order to cure the budget, there was an organization, and they used Jimmy Roosevelt as one of their officers. And they carried on a big campaign to get the electorate to get on their congressman and vote the right way. And they were soliciting subscriptions. So I sent in $5. And as is the case with so many organizations, I think they turn into self-supporting entities to a large extent. The officials got a nice job. They don't want to lose it. They do everything they can to preserve it. So then I began to get a spate of mail.
They probably spent more than your $5 in sending you a whole bunch of stuff.
They truly did. They sent all kinds of things. This picture was one. Another one was a little record to play on your phonograph, and so on. So when I saw that, there was no more $5 coming from me, see? That's Frances Perkins. She was the first woman cabinet member, Secretary of Labor.
What year was that?
Huh?
What year was that?
Oh, that would be back in the 30s. I think about 1936. That's kind of when I remember that Social Security became the law of the land. I'm not sure, but I think that's Claude Pepper. He was a very stout advocate for the aged, and especially this bill, of course. He died here a few years ago.
This is like a treasure chest, Grandpa. You have all sorts of wonderful things. Oh, it's a beautiful picture. Can't keep that open. Oops. Here. Here we go. That fell. She brought this here home from the hospital with her?
This one here was a long stem about as thick as your finger, and it grew up about this tall, and usually it had 3 green leaves or 4 at the very top, and the others all kept dying all the time, and it just kept growing. I cut it off, and so it's starting up again.
Grandpa, where did the stained glass light come from?
Oh, that our first trip down to the Smokies, down to Gatlinburg. You been to Gatlinburg?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Was in 1948. And this was the time when things were a little easier for us. Our first trip, we took a tent down and camped in the campgrounds about 4 or 5 miles up from Gatlinburg. And at that time, the shops were all honest. There was no geejaws. It was good, honest merchandise. And we usually, as we went around and looked through them, we would buy one piece to bring home. I don't remember which came first. I think that copper planter there might have been the first thing we brought home. That lamp was another one.
It's beautiful. Where was it hanging in the other house?
I think it was in the living room on the front wall, over somewhere near the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
You remember? I don't remember. I remember once you came, I think it was maybe when you left Fort Ord and came, you were going, I don't know where.
Let's see.
I remember your mom and dad stopped down in Bradley Park and put clean dresses on you and Heidi. And you would have been, what, 2?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Uh, I'm not sure. Yeah, that must have been when you...
We were probably going to the
Little Yellow...
Little Yellow House, that's right, yeah.
And I'm not sure, but was that when your dad went to Korea?
Yep. 1964, I think. When was Kennedy killed?
Huh?
When was Kennedy killed?
Oh,
Was it 64 or 65?
64.
64, yeah, because he was there then. Yeah. Where did you get the coat of arms up there?
Oh, we were down Gatlinburg, and there was a little conclave with a British shop in it. And they were offering coats of arms. You can see we weren't very high up in the hierarchy.
How can you tell that?
Huh?
How can you tell that?
Well, most of them were elaborate and with all kinds of stuff on them. Lions and everything else.
Okay.
I guess maybe all we were was a foot soldier or something.
Did Dad send you those dolls?
Yeah.
From Japan, or was that from
He carried them home from Korea.
Korea?
Yeah.
Okay.
I made that case for them. They're just like they were when they came. You see that little white dog up there?
Mm-hmm.
That's Winston.
Winston? Who's Winston?
Don't you think it looks like Winston?
Churchill?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mama and I flew over to Indianapolis one day just to look around, go through the stores. And she saw him on a counter and she liked him. And those little things always tickled her. There's a little dog with Scotch Tammy on there. So.
Yeah, he's over to the left
Uh-huh.
by that gold planter.
Yeah, I see him now. You see my little doggy bank up there
Dog bank.
with the pack
The
on his back?
second shelf, yeah.
That was my first bank.
When did you have it?
Oh, I guess it's somewhere back when I was 4 or 5 years old. $1912, 1913. I remember having it on that farm south of Farmington. I had a dog, black and white shepherd. His name was Rover. Rover saved my life. I'm like 3 years old, I guess, and I went out back of the house and up in a pasture. There's a little creek came down, meandering down, and I got down in that creek and into water up to my waist, and it was slippery and I couldn't get out. And of course I cried. And Rover was up on the bank and he set up a big hullabaloo, bark, 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 bark. And my mother heard him and went to see what the problem was. She pulled me out. So you're here only by chance, you know.
You could have gotten swept away. How long did you have Rover?
Rover was about 12 years old when he died. We lived there just southwest of Brunswick Church. And there was a porch on the west side of the house, right outside the kitchen. North-south wall, east-west wall, the front of the porch. And Rover slept up in the corner there, kind of protected. That was his spot. And so one day my father went to Farmington in a wagon for something, I don't know what it was. And when he left Farmington, here's this black and white dog, big bone dog. He's a shepherd, but he's got some other in him too, because shepherds don't grow as big as he was. And he followed my father home, all the way. And so I think it wasn't a year that he was there before old Rover died. But he never invaded Rover's spot on the porch.
Oh, yeah?
And then when old Rover died, Major took over. That would be about 1920, I think.
Did you always have dogs? Did you always have dogs when you were a kid?
Did I ever what?
Did you always have a dog when you were a kid?
Well, just the two dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like what, 1908 until 1930, I guess it was. Oh, by the way, you talking about going out to plant flowers. That's all done now. Your Aunt Margaret and Uncle Jerry called about a day or two after you called. Said, we're coming up and go around with you to the cemeteries. So we went on Tuesday. That would be, today is Friday, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And what, that'd be what, a week ago Tuesday, I guess it was. They were only here, they came on Sunday, and they had to leave to go home on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they, over at your Aunt Margaret's, and then his father is in this nursing home up the street up here.
Oh.
And he had a new granddaughter born just a few days ago, I guess.
So how's Aunt Margaret doing?
Well, they seem to be doing all right. I don't know too much about Jerry. He was in the Army. He seemed quite proud of having been one of what they call the Green Berets.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he got called back for Desert Storm. But I don't know, I assume he's on pension, but they're both working now. Margaret spent several years out in Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
And something's been happening there. People are moving into Santa Fe and there's a shortage of housing. And the rents have been going up and up and up.
Hmm.
And I don't know what kind of apartment they had. It wasn't much, probably living room, kitchen, bedroom, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the rent got up to $800 a month.
Holy cow! That's incredible.
So we decided we couldn't take any more of that.
Yeah.
And he had an Army buddy in Alabama, some little town down there. And I went to visit him, and the guy says, "Why don't you move down here?" Well, they decided to, and I don't remember the name of the little town, but anyway.
I seem to remember it was outside of Huntsville or something, wasn't it?
Well, not too far from there.
Yeah.
But anyway, they moved down there, and they found it was kind of a closed community.
Mm.
People wasn't too happy about any outsiders, you know.
Yeah.
There were no opportunities, so they're in Huntsville now.
Okay.
That's not too far south of Chattanooga.
I was at Huntsville once visiting the space camp.
Well, I don't know whether Jerry got that job or what he got, but he applied for a job at that space camp.
Mm-hmm.
They take kids in, you know,
Right. Yeah.
that they think might be interested in space, and kind of keep track of them, and it's the way they
Mm-hmm.
tend to keep their space program going when they grow up.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to turn this off for a while. I'm just about out of tape. So, let's see here. How do you turn this off? I think